right-footed copy. Oh! Bang! That one goes down. Champions! He takes that chance. Aguero!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Sports Fans Network. I am the CHALL, and today welcome to an edition of the Non-League Report, bringing you the latest news and discussion topics from the world of non-league football. We've entered into the National League in this video as we talk about Boston United as they have sacked their manager Ian Culverhouse. Now, before we get started talking about the club's statement, sharing with you three names that I could see potentially as options for Boston United, or three managers that I would like to see as options for Boston United, both short-term and long-term. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so you never miss another video. And for now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into this and talk about the situation currently at Boston United within the last 48 hours. So Boston United released two statements, the first of which was on the parting of the company with first-team manager Ian Culverhouse. Now, according to the website, he took charge at the Jakeman's Community Stadium in September 2022, helping to preserve the club's National League North status in his first season at the helm before guiding the Pilgrims to promotion through the playoffs in May. However, a difficult start to life in the National League has led to a change being made. The club extends their thanks to Ian for his service and wish him well for the future. And just a reminder for any Boston United fans watching that they're not back in action in the league until November the 9th against Dagenham and Redbridge. The club then released a second statement on the departure of the assistant manager and club legend Paul Bastock. Following Culverhouse's exit earlier on the Monday, the United chairman David Newton has now since confirmed at that point that the club record appearance holder has also departed as well. Paul played for the Pilgrims between 1992 and 2004 and another spell between 2010 and 2011, amassing 679 appearances in the process of twice being promoted. He was an ever-present in the United's first two Football League seasons and returned in September 2022 to assist Culverhouse in a new-look management team at the Jakeman's Community Stadium. The nicknamed Bazza completes the promotion hat-trick as the Pilgrims triumph throughout the playoffs in May 2024 to return to the National League, and he also departs with the club's thanks and best wishes for the future. So before we talk about my potential options as to who could replace Culverhouse as the first-team manager, let me just share my thoughts on the departure of Ian Culverhouse and Paul Bastock. Obviously, first of all, it's never nice seeing a manager lose his job. That's just the general human instinct. It's never nice to see anyone lose their job in any, not just in football, but anyone lose their job. So, obviously, it is sad to see someone lose their job, and my personal best wishes goes out to both Ian Culverhouse and Paul Bastock from a neutral perspective. I think from a results basis, obviously at the end of the day, they got the club back into the National League after the season before when they retained the National League North status. They survived. The season after they go up, and, obviously the step up to National League hasn't gone the way that Boston fans would have wanted. They're in the bottom four, and at the end of the day, ruthlessness from a results basis is needed. And at the end of the day, from a results perspective, I think it's the right call at this moment in time. You're about to go into, November and December, so you're approaching the Christmas period. It's only a couple of months until the real business end of the season picks up for Boston United and for most leagues in this country. And you're at a point where you feel as if something drastic needed to happen if results weren't changing. And you're coming up against a good Dagenham and Redbridge side in the next league game. So, for me personally, I feel like, at the end of the day, they got knocked out of the FA Cup by Gainsborough Trinity. They, at the end of the day, they're going to be in a situation where the club wants to retain their National League status, keep looking up the table, never look backwards. And for me personally, it's, from a results perspective, the right decision. I think that even though the managers get a lot of, even though Ian and Paul and the team get a lot of respect for taking the club back to the National League at the end of last season, getting them promoted back into the National League and the Conference Premiership division from the Conference North, the National League North, Obviously, you have to give respect for that. They did win promotion with the club, but at the end of the day, it is a ruthless industry. It is a ruthless sport. It's a cutthroat sport, and results tell. And clubs make the change when results tell. So the results weren't quite what they needed it to be. And again, I'll reiterate that Ian and Paul goes with my personal best wishes anyway. But what about what's next for Boston United? Well, let's have a look at the three managers that I could see as potential options for the Pilgrims to minimum short-term keep them in the National League, or try to keep them in the National League, but long-term move them further up in the table and even potentially back towards the Football League. So we are going to kick off with managerial target number one, in my personal opinion, and that is Curzon Ashton's Craig Mahon. Now, he plays a 4-2-3-1. He relies on the back four, a structured back four, traditional back four, with the centre-backs maintaining a strong defensive line, the full-backs occasionally going pushing forward to support the wide attacks, but primarily tasked with maintaining the defensive shape. With the double pivot, the two holding midfielders providing defensive coverage, helping break up the opposition play. They offer support to the back line, cover the fullbacks when they move forward, serving a platform for initiating quick counter-attacks. You've got an attacking midfield trio, so you've got the central attacking midfielder acting as the link between defence and attack, creating chances, helping to create chances, offering support to the lone striker. You've got two wide attacking midfielders almost, stretching the play, providing the width, helping to press out of possession. Then you've got your lone striker in the number 9 role, tasked with leading the line, the physical presence, capable of holding up the play. The striker's role in his team's counter-attacking approach, or his style of counter-attacking approach, capitalising on quick transitions, converting limited chances. The positives of Craig Mahon and his style of play: he has a strong defensive organisation. That's something he really emphasises and hammers into. His defensive discipline especially. He ensures that his team remains compact, he remains organised, maintains tight lines, reduces space, makes it challenging for teams to break down the defence of Curzon Ashton, for example. He emphasises teamwork, unity as an ex-player. He understands the importance of camaraderie, creates a close-knit environment and a close-knit squad, fighting hard for each other, fights for the badge. So you get a really passionate manager, you get a passionate style of play, a passionate morale, and it's the kind of passion you need to stay in the football, in the National League short term, and to progress forward long term. And the unity and teamwork is, when it all works and when everything's working exactly how it should, it's evident. It's completely and utterly evident. You see that with Curzon Ashton. He wants a resilient squad that's willing to work together for everyone, live by the sword, die by the sword, and that is what Mahon's all about in terms of his unity and his morale. They have a high work rate. He instills a high work rate into his players, encourages pressing from the front. Curzon Ashton's players, for example, they often apply pressure high up the pitch at times, aiming to force mistakes, capitalise on turnovers. Very, very important from an entertainment perspective in terms of the brand of football they produce. Their tactical setup isn't rigid, it's also flexible, adapting his game plan to suit different situations, which makes him a more versatile manager. He does ready for every situation, and that's very important to me as well. And he also focuses on player development as well. He improves them technically, tactically, physically, mentally, effectively. It's beneficial for younger players as well to elevate their individual game. And for me, he's the right kind of guy to bring the younger players closer with the senior squad. In terms of the potential setbacks of appointing Craig Mahon in terms of his tactical setup, even though he's defensively solid, Curzon Ashton can sometimes struggle to create consistent scoring opportunities. So that's something they need to work on. They need extra plans in place. They need to make sure they have a striker, whether in January or already at the club, who can consistently fire goals or needs to fire goals. They rely on defensive organisation and counter-attacks, which means they occasionally lack the creativity needed to break down tightly packaged defences. They are inexperienced at times with this focus on developing young players. They can sometimes suffer from that lapse in concentration or tactical naivety at times, which could be a disadvantage, especially in relegation battles. Every result counts, every point counts. They rely on counter-attacking, and its emphasis on defensive structure and counter-attacking can sometimes also limit possession and control, which means they lose control of the game and the rhythm of the match. and their pressing can be inconsistent at times. While it is high in a key part of the manager's approach, it does require high fitness levels and coordination, and when the pressing isn't executed effectively, it can leave pockets of space that opposition teams can exploit very, very easily, especially within that midfield. So that's something to keep a note of as well. Manager number 2 is what I would like to call the ambitious option. I think Craig Mahon's the option from the league below that could have a chance in the National League. This is what I like to call the ambitious option, and that is Graham Coughlan. Now, he operates a formation in terms of his primary best formation to use, a 5-4-1 or a 5-3-2. He utilises a back 5 anchored by 3 central defenders, providing additional cover against opposition attacks and allowing for a fighting spirit as well as a tight, compact defensive line. The 2 wing-backs have defensive responsibilities, but they also push forward on occasion to provide width in counter-attacks or crosses. And a back 5 is very, very important, especially in relegation battles, because at the end of the day, for me, I feel like a back 5 style formation and a back 5 manager could provide good attacks going forward, but also defensively is solid in relegation dogfights with other teams in and amongst that bottom 4. So they have a 3-man midfield as well. Now, of course, in the 5-3-2, they typically employ a hard-working midfielder trio. One midfielder is the deep-lying player with that shields the defence, while the other 2 work to break up play, transition quickly into attacking situations, and this particular setup for me helps to maintain defensive stability whilst allowing some flexibility for counter-attacks. Now then, they can go either one of 2 ways in terms of their attacking setup. In the 5-3-2, they can go for 2 forwards or a lone striker. Now, in the 5-3-2, the 2 forwards focusing on exploiting gaps left by the opposition defence, and this setup is particularly effective for counter-attacking as both forwards occupy the centre-backs. In a 5-4-1, the lone striker serves as the target man for long balls and quick counter-attacks, relying on the support from the wide midfielders or wing-backs. Now, in the 5-4-1, you have the wide midfielders. So you've got as you're operating the 5-4-1, you can have the 2 wide midfielders with the wing-back supporting either side, and you've got the double pivot in midfield. Now, the wide midfielders support both the defence and the attack and cover the flanks when the team is defending and provide width on the counter, making it challenging for oppositions to break down the compact structure. And it offers potential overlaps in attack when they decide to push forward even more, overlapping or underlapping the wing-backs as they push forward and then track back. Now, the positives of a Graham Coughlan style of play, first of all, is defensive organisation. I think that's very, very important. It's renowned for their ability to instill strong defensive discipline. They're well drilled, they maintain their shape, they're hard to break down, makes them particularly strong against opponents who rely on breaking down deep defensive lines. They're physical, they're resilient, high levels of grit and resilience, well conditioned to play high-intensity physical styles of football, which makes them competitive in duels and aerial battles. They're effective usually from set pieces, both defensively and offensively. So there needs to be height in that team, which makes them more valuable in closer contested matches where chances are limited. He isn't afraid to adapt his tactics based on the opposition, showing a more pragmatic approach to his style of play. He prioritises results over a style of football, a bit like Guy McSheffrey at Doncaster Rovers back in the day a few years ago, and is willing to make adjustments that benefit the team in specific match situations. And of course, there's a mental toughness with Graham Coughlan's team, grinding out results, keeping their composure under pressure, a key asset in low-scoring matches or tough fixtures, as his players generally demonstrate resilience, even in challenging circumstances. Now then, the negatives or potential setbacks of a Graham Coughlan style of football is there's potential option of the potential availability for limited creativity and possession at one time. His focus on defensive solidity and direct play often comes at the expense of creativity and ball retention, and his teams tend to sometimes surrender possession, which can lead to struggles in building sustained attacks and controlling games against more dominant opposition. You think of some of the teams at the top end of the National League, for example, teams like York City, teams like Barnet, teams like Forest Green. You feel there's an option for them to potentially have more of the ball as they come up against Boston United if Graham Coughlan is to be that next man. And Boston has to really rely on those tough fixtures and being pragmatic, getting a result out of that game, putting style of football to the back of the mind, and focusing on getting a result out of that game. And that could be a real setback for them both short-term and long-term. Now, Coughlan's style of play, while effective defensively, can also be predictable and lacking in attacking variation, which makes it potentially easier for opponents to prepare, especially teams that are comfortable dealing with direct physical play. Now, of course, they are a low-scoring style of team, with the tactics emphasising defensive stability over attacking freedom, which results in potential limited scoring opportunities. Now, Coughlan's team have often struggled to consistently find the net, relying heavily on set pieces or isolated moments rather than fluid open play attacks. Now, they have also had difficulty in breaking down defences when faced with a team sitting deep. Coughlan's direct approach can struggle to create clear chances, and his teams generally fare better when they can play on the counter or in a more physical matchup rather than attempting to dominate possession. Now, also with Coughlan, there's a reliance on experienced players. He can play younger players as well. There is the option to do that. He can work with younger players. However, his demanding physical style can sometimes be challenging for younger or more technically inclined players, and his preference for seasoned, robust players can limit potential opportunities for younger players, especially those needing game time to develop technically. Now, for me, Graham Coughlan overall would be a very ambitious appointment for that level of football and for the football club as well. And nothing against Boston United. I think Graham Coughlan's previous history as a manager and his previous success could be known as, which is why I called him an ambitious appointment for Boston United. And finally, again, from a complete and utter survival basis, Neal Ardley is my third and final choice. I could have gone with someone like Dino Mamria. However, I think that Neal Ardley for me just tops it. And here is the positives and the setbacks as to why. But first of all, the formation. His best formation for me is a 4-2-3-1 or a classic 4-4-2. He utilises the back four, which typically consists of a traditional back four, with the fullbacks occasionally pushing up to support the wide play, but largely focusing on defensive stability. This ensures that Ardley's team maintains a solid shape even when transitioning between attack and defence. Now, in the 4-2-3-1, we have a double pivot, and the two holding midfielders provide defensive cover and break up opposition play, screening the defence and ensuring that there are limited spaces for opponents to exploit. This double pivot also enables the team to recycle possession effectively and maintain control of the game's official tempo. Now, in the 4-4-2, we have the wide midfielders, and in the 4-4-2 formation, he relies on disciplined wide midfielders who can both track back and support the attack. This adds width to the play and creates crossing opportunities while maintaining defensive cover on the flanks. Now, in the 4-2-3-1, there is an attacking midfield trio, with the three players behind the striker adding flexibility, with the central attacking midfielder linking the play, and the wide midfielders and the wide players stretching the opposition's backline, with this setup supporting Ardley's preference for crossing and exploiting the width. Now, in the 4-4-2, there is two forwards in this formation, used to maintain pressure on the opposition's defence, with one often dropping slightly deeper to link up the play. And in a 4-2-3-1, the lone striker focuses on finishing and leading the line, often supported by the attacking midfielders on either side, or wide midfielders or wide players on either side, and the central attacking midfielder behind the lone striker. Now then, the positives of a Neal Ardley style of play, first of all, is defensive organisation. They are often disciplined at the back, focusing in on a strong shape that makes it difficult for opponents to break through, and his teams are well drilled and committed, minimising space and cutting off passing lanes. They have a structured build-up who values control and organised build-up play. Neal Ardley encourages his team to play through the lines, focusing on ball retention and creating chances methodically, rather than relying on hopeful long balls or chaotic pieces of play. They are flexible and tactically aware of their situation. He's shown an ability to adapt his tactics based on the opposition, making adjustments when needed. This tactical flexibility and versatility has allowed him to prepare his team well for a range of playing styles and to make in-game changes effectively. That adds a lot of pedigree as a manager to potentially being appointed as the next boss. And for me, that adds another feather to his cap, and could give him a potential edge in the managerial race. He is also strong in organised and effective set pieces, with a particular focus on defending and attacking set situations, utilising set pieces as a vital component of his offensive strategy, making the most of potential limited chances. And the final thing on his positives is a good track record of working with younger players and developing them tactically. He's known for his ability to improve players, understanding the game, which is beneficial, especially at clubs with tight budgets. And for me, no disrespect, but when you look at Boston United compared to the likes of other clubs in the National League at the top end, the biggest clubs in that division, they've not got the biggest budget. So Neal Ardley in January would bring in the right signings to keep the club inside the National League short term and build forward long term. Now, when you look at the potential setbacks of appointing Neal Ardley, there is, on occasion, a lack of creativity and a sense of lack of risk-taking. His approach can sometimes feel overly conservative, with a focus on structure that limits creative freedom. His teams occasionally struggle to generate clear-cut scoring opportunities, especially against teams that sit deep. So for the technically gifted young players, this could be a potential setback in their development if they're working in a structure rather than a style of freedom, and working in a style of structure instead. Now, the build-up play, while structured, is also often slow, which sometimes allows opposition defences time to reorganise, and the style can be less effective against teams that defend compactly, as it limits Ardley's team's ability to break down stubborn defences. There is also at times an over-reliance on set pieces, depending heavily on them for scoring, which can make them predictable and limit goal-scoring opportunities from open play. There is also a lack of potential offensive fluidity, with a structured style sometimes stifling offensive players which rely on spontaneity. This strict focus on organisation can lead to a lack of fluidity in the attack, causing his teams to struggle against oppositions who force them to be creative. And also there's some pragmatism over risk. He tends to favour defensive security over taking those risks. While this can make his teams hard to beat, it sometimes limits their chance of winning, as the cautious approach often leads them low-scoring games or narrow results. So there we go, that is 3 managers that I could see as potential options. Neal Ardley is the survival one, Graham Coughlan is the ambitious one, and Craig Mahon is the National League North one. Now, if you want me to give you an honest prediction as to who I would choose out of those 3, I think that out of those 3, Craig Mahon is the one who long-term could succeed going forward. I think Graham Coughlan has an opportunity to succeed in that level as well. Neal Ardley is a survival specialist. What happens beyond surviving this season, if they do choose him to survive for the rest of the season, is another story. Now, in terms of any other potential names out there who I didn't have on this list who could be good, I read the Off the Line blog. Shout out to them. Go give them a read. Tom Shaw, who's more of a local coach. I think he's a first team coach at Lincoln City at the minute. He could be a good young head coach to build around long term. Yes, Boston might go down this year, but they have a chance to go straight back up under Tom Shaw. If he brings a good style of play, if he works effectively with the group. I think Danny Whitehead was on that list as well in the article. Again, he's another one. So you've got some good ideas there. Dino Mamria as well, even though I didn't have him on this list. He's someone, again, who I would rate very highly if they went for him. He's a specialist in the lower leagues. He's a bit of a specialist. So for me, I think Dino Mamria could be a good option. But from the 3 that I've listed, in terms of ambition, I'd go with Graham Coughlan. In terms of a long-term appointment, probably Craig Mahon's your best bet. But it also depends on if Curzon Ashton is willing to let Craig Mahon talk to Boston United and whether that whole process goes through or not. But thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching this video. Make sure you do like, comment, subscribe. Boston United fans, comment down below. What do you think about this appointment? Who would you like to see as manager? Comment down below your thoughts and opinions. And for now, I'm the CHALL, ta-ra for now. And that is the full-time whistle here on SFM.
Right foot to Coughlan!